Did you know that this tiny penny in your pocket could make you a fortune? Some pennies are selling for tens of thousands of dollars at auctions. Stay tuned, because we're showing the coins collectors are paying big money for right now. If you have a 2009 D1 cent penny in your collection, you could be holding a piece of history that collectors across the United States and even the world are eager to get their hands on. This isn't just another coin. This is a coin minted in a year that marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, a coin that carries both historical significance and numismatic intrigue. Imagine walking into an exclusive coin auction, the air tense with anticipation, and hearing someone announce, "We are paying big money for these rare pennies." That could be your coin, sitting quietly in a drawer, waiting for its moment to shine. Every year, at closed-door auctions, online bidding events, and collector-only gatherings, enthusiasts scour through countless coins hoping to discover one of these 2009 D1 cent pennies in top condition, knowing that a single coin could transform a modest collection into a treasure trove. The 2009 D1 cent penny is part of the Lincoln Bicentennial Series, a series that celebrates Lincoln's life with 4 unique reverse designs depicting different stages of his journey: his birth and early childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and finally, his presidency in Washington, D.C. The D mint mark indicates that this particular coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the most prolific mints in the United States. While millions of these pennies were minted, only a fraction survive in pristine condition, and even fewer have the rare characteristics that serious collectors seek. At auctions, we've seen bidding wars ignite over a single 2009 D1 cent penny, with enthusiasts repeatedly shouting, "We're paying big money for these coins," as the paddle rises again and again, driving the price higher and higher. What makes this coin truly fascinating is not just its age, but the story it tells. On the obverse, the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln greets the viewer, a symbol of courage, leadership, and integrity. On the reverse, depending on the design, collectors can see a vivid depiction of Lincoln's early life, his journey to self-education, or his time as a lawyer and statesman. Each detail matters: the tiny lines in his hair, the curvature of the letters, the precise spacing of the wheat or other design elements. Subtle imperfections or unusual characteristics, such as a double die, offset or strike, or a faint minting anomaly, can instantly elevate a coin from ordinary to auction star status. At live coin auctions, these details are scrutinized under magnification, and collectors bid aggressively to secure the rarest examples. The thrill of acquiring a 2009 D1 cent penny at auction is unmatched. Picture a room full of seasoned collectors, each recognizing the potential value of a coin that might appear mundane to the untrained eye. The auctioneer announces the lot, paddles fly, and bids escalate rapidly. Tension builds as everyone waits to see who will claim the prize. These coins have sold for hundreds, even thousands, depending on rarity, grading, and condition. At every auction, the excitement is the same. Collectors competing to acquire a coin that represents both history and an opportunity for investment. The message is clear: if you find one of these pennies, you could be holding a coin that someone is willing to pay top dollar for at auction. The 2009 D1 cent penny also has significance because it belongs to a commemorative series, which automatically increases collector interest. Limited edition designs, mint mark variations, and subtle errors make these coins especially desirable. Imagine discovering a coin with a slightly double D mint mark or a faint die crack on the reverse design, a detail invisible to most casual observers but immediately recognizable to experienced collectors. When such coins appear in auctions, bidding becomes intense. Online auction platforms, heritage auctions, and coin conventions often feature these pennies, and the excitement is palpable. Repeatedly, collectors remind each other, "We're paying big money for these coins," and the bids rise as if the coin itself commands attention. Even beyond rare errors, the 2009 D1 cent penny has historical weight. Being part of the Lincoln Bicentennial Series means that every coin tells a story of America's 16th president, his humble beginnings, and his rise to leadership during one of the nation's most tumultuous periods. For collectors, owning a coin from this series isn't just about monetary value. It's about holding a piece of history. Each auction reminds us of this, as bidders examine coins with meticulous care, comparing details, verifying grading, and competing for the chance to add a 2009 D1 penny to their collection. It's a thrilling experience, and for anyone watching or participating in these auctions, the suspense is as exciting as any treasure hunt. Collectors are particularly attentive to the coin's condition. Grading services such as PeaceGS or NGC evaluate the coin's wear, strike quality, luster, and surface imperfections. An uncirculated coin, graded MS 65 or higher, could fetch several $1,000s at auction. Coins with unusual features or errors can command even higher prices. The excitement in the auction room is palpable as each coin is introduced and bidders raise their paddles in anticipation. Every auction is a story of suspense, strategy, and sometimes pure luck. We've seen collectors travel across states, spend hours examining coins, and compete passionately, all for a chance to own a 2009 D1 penny that may never appear again at auction. It's fascinating to reflect on how a coin that was once merely a token for everyday transactions, a coin you might have received in change at a grocery store, has transformed into a collectible so desired that people are willing to pay significant sums for it. The journey of these pennies from the mint to the auction room, often passing through countless hands, adds layers of history, rarity, and intrigue. Collectors value not just the coin's physical characteristics, but its story, its journey through time, and the knowledge that each 2009 D1 penny represents a unique link to Abraham Lincoln's bicentennial celebrations. And at every auction, the thrill remains the same. The excitement of bidding, the tension in the room, and the repeated realization that we're paying big money for these coins. Over time, the 2009 D1 penny has become a sought-after addition to many collections. Serious collectors pay attention to subtle variations, grading scores, and provenance. Even coins that might seem ordinary at first glance can generate incredible excitement if they possess a rare error, exceptional strike, or flawless condition. At auctions worldwide, these coins have repeatedly proven that their value is more than just face value. It's historical significance, rarity, and the thrill of the hunt that drives prices up. Collectors and investors alike watch these auctions with bated breath, knowing that the right 2009 D1 penny could be worth far more than expected. As we come to the end of this journey through the story of the 2009 D1 penny, it's impossible not to feel the thrill that comes with discovering a coin that could be more than just a piece of metal. It could be a treasure, a connection to history, and even a life-changing find. Think about it. A coin that might have sat unnoticed in a jar of loose change or an old wallet could, at the right auction, transform into a prize that collectors around the world would compete fiercely to acquire. Every year, we see these coins appear in exclusive auctions, both online and in person, and the tension is always palpable. Bidders raise their paddles again and again, the excitement building as everyone in the room knows the truth. We're paying big money for these coins. If you have a 1958 wheat penny in your collection, you could be holding a piece of history that collectors around the world would pay serious money for. This isn't just any ordinary coin you might find in your change. This is a coin that carries decades of American history, stamped with the face of one of the most iconic presidents of the United States, and bearing the unmistakable wheat stalks on the reverse that have fascinated collectors for generations. Imagine walking into an auction room, the air thick with anticipation, and hearing someone exclaim, "We're paying big money for this coin." That could be your coin. Every year, at exclusive collector auctions, closed-door auctions, and even online coin auctions, people are willing to bid enormous amounts to get their hands on rare examples of the 1958 wheat penny, especially those in pristine condition or with rare minting errors. The story of the 1958 wheat penny begins in the heart of the United States Mint, where coins were struck with precision. Yet sometimes, just sometimes, an error would occur that would create a coin more valuable than the standard issue. The 1958 wheat penny was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and while millions of these coins circulated in everyday life, only a fraction survived the decades in near-perfect condition. These coins were small enough to slip unnoticed into pockets, jars, and drawers, yet those that survived the wear of time have become treasures. Collectors at auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and even local collector gatherings are constantly on the lookout for these rare pennies. Bidders often compete fiercely, raising paddle after paddle, each one hoping to secure a coin that could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. What makes the 1958 wheat penny so special isn't just its age, but its design and subtle nuances. On the obverse, the profile of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most beloved figures in American history, gazes forward with a solemn, dignified expression, a reminder of a nation's resilience. On the reverse, the two wheat stalks curve around the words, 1 cent, symbolizing prosperity and the agrarian roots of America. Collectors know that the details matter. A slight doubling of letters, a faint die crack, or a subtle mint mark anomaly can transform an ordinary penny into a rare, auction-worthy treasure. That's why coin enthusiasts are willing to pay thousands, even tens of thousands, for a single 1958 wheat penny in top condition. At auctions, we've seen these coins sell for astounding amounts, sometimes reaching $90,000 or even $80,000 for particularly rare examples or error coins. Imagine the excitement as the auctioneer hammers down the gavel, and the coin that once sat unnoticed in someone's drawer is suddenly the center of attention, commanding a price that seems almost unreal. Every coin tells a story, and the 1958 wheat penny carries the story of post-war America, of small change circulating in pockets, cash registers, and coin jars, all while slowly gaining value and prestige among collectors. We constantly remind ourselves and our viewers, if you find one of these pennies in your collection, you could be holding a fortune in your hands without even realizing it. Even the minting process of 1958 was fascinating. Each penny was struck on a steel press, designed to last, yet the process could sometimes leave small, fascinating imperfections. These imperfections are what collectors hunt for at auctions. A misplaced mint mark, an unusual die variation, or a rare error could send the value of a single penny skyrocketing. At coin auctions, we've witnessed moments of pure tension as bidders compete for these small discs of history, each one hoping to claim a piece that may never come up for sale again. And while millions of 1958 wheat pennies were made, only a handful have survived in mint condition, making each one a potential gem waiting for discovery. You might be asking yourself how to spot one of these valuable coins, and the truth is, it takes a keen eye and some knowledge of coin grading. Coins are graded on their condition, from well-circulated to uncirculated, with uncirculated coins often fetching the highest auction prices. Slight imperfections, like a scratch or a tiny discoloration, can dramatically affect the value, which is why professional grading services like PCGS or NGC are trusted in the collector community. And when a 1958 wheat penny is graded at the highest level, auctions light up. Collectors place their bids with excitement, knowing that rare, high-grade examples are incredibly scarce and extremely desirable. Every auction reminds us that these coins aren't just currency. They're artifacts of history, tangible pieces of America's story, capable of generating jaw-dropping prices for those who recognize their value. From a moment the first 1958 wheat penny left the mint to today, these coins have traveled through countless hands, witnessed decades of change, and occasionally been overlooked in jars of spare change or forgotten collections. Yet for those paying attention to coin auctions worldwide, these pennies are anything but forgotten. Every auction tells the same story. Collectors are willing to pay, sometimes aggressively, for a coin that is rare, well-preserved, or contains a fascinating error. We've seen bidders compete passionately, raising their paddles in closed-door auctions, online auctions, and live collector auctions, each determined to secure a piece of history that could soon be worth $90,000 or $80,000. As we dive deeper into the story of the 1958 wheat penny. It's impossible not to be amazed by the sheer number of ways this coin has captured the imagination of collectors. While millions of these pennies circulated in everyday life, only a small percentage survived in a condition good enough to command serious money at auctions. Think about it. A coin that was once a mere token of everyday transactions, buying a loaf of bread, a newspaper, or a cup of coffee, has now transformed into an object of desire that brings bidders to the edge of their seats at exclusive collector auctions. We constantly hear stories from auction houses, collectors, and enthusiasts about the thrill of discovering a near-perfect 1958 wheat penny tucked away in an old coin album, in a forgotten box of loose change, or hidden in a family heirloom. The moment a coin like this is authenticated, graded, and prepared for auction, the excitement skyrockets. Collectors know that the beauty of the 1958 wheat penny lies in its subtle details. The wheat stalks on the reverse are more than decorative. They're symbols of an America that had survived wars, economic challenges, and societal changes. Each stalk is carefully engraved, and slight differences in die impressions, mint marks, or planchet errors can drastically increase a coin's desirability. Imagine being in an auction hall as the gavel hovers over a 1958 wheat penny with a rare die crack, or one with a double date. A coin that most people would overlook, but experts immediately recognize as potentially worth tens of thousands of dollars. "We're paying big money for these coins," echoes repeatedly at auctions as collectors and investors alike recognize the immense value hidden in these tiny discs. It's not just the standard 1958 wheat penny that commands attention. Rare minting errors make certain examples extraordinarily valuable. From off-center strikes to re-punched mint marks, each variation tells a story of the coin press at work and the rare accident that created a collector's treasure. At live auctions and closed-door bidding events, these error coins are the true stars of the show. Bidders lean forward in anticipation, paddles raised, eyes glued to the auctioneer as the hammer hovers over coins that could fetch $90,000 or $80,000. Every movement is tense. Every bid increases the stakes, and every coin sold adds to the legend of the 1958 wheat penny. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out an old penny, and realizing that this tiny copper coin might be worth more than a luxury car. Sounds impossible, right? But this is exactly what's happening right now in the world of rare coin auctions, where collectors and investors are paying big money for certain pennies, especially one specific year that most people completely ignore. Today, we're talking about the 1961-cent penny, a coin that millions of people have handled, spent, and forgotten, yet a few rare versions of it are being hunted aggressively at auctions, where buyers like us are paying massive prices to secure them. Back in 1960, America was changing fast. The economy was growing, cities were expanding, and everyday cash was moving constantly from hand to hand. The penny was still a real part of daily life. You could buy candy with it, newspapers, and small essentials. Nobody back then was thinking about auctions, rare errors, or future value. The U.S. Mint was focused on producing huge quantities of coins to keep up with demand, and that's exactly how rare treasures are born, through speed, pressure, and human imperfection. The 1960 penny carries the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the front, calm and serious, a design that had already become iconic by that time. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly, representing history, strength, and stability. To the average person, this penny looks ordinary. But collectors know better. What matters isn't just what you see at first glance. It's the tiny details, the spacing of letters, the metal flow, and the subtle differences that separate a common coin from a five-figure auction piece. In 1960, pennies were struck in enormous numbers, but they weren't all made the same way. Some were produced in Philadelphia without a mint mark, while others came from Denver with a small D below the date. But the real story, the one that makes auction rooms go silent, comes from design variations and minting errors that slipped through unnoticed. These errors weren't intentional. They happened because machines were adjusted, dies were replaced, and sometimes the mint simply moved too fast. Collectors today are obsessed with these mistakes, and for good reason. At major auctions, Rare error coins don't just sell, they spark bidding wars. We see it again and again. Two collectors locked in competition, prices climbing higher with every bid, because they both know how rare these coins truly are. And yes, we are actively buying these rare error coins at auction, paying big money, because opportunities like this don't come often. One of the most important details on the 1960 penny is the small date versus large date variation. To most people, it looks like nothing. To auction buyers, it's everything. The spacing, the thickness of the numbers, and how the 1 and 9 align can instantly change the value. Coins with certain date styles, combined with pristine condition or mint errors, are exactly the type of pieces we chase aggressively at auction. Condition is another silent game changer. A penny that's circulated for decades, scratched and worn, may be worth just a cent. But a 1960 penny that survived untouched, sharp details, full luster, and no discoloration can attract serious attention. At auction, condition turns ordinary metal into a competitive asset. We've seen collectors pay astonishing amounts simply because a coin looks like it was frozen in time. Then there are the errors, the real auction magnets. Off-center strikes, double dies, misaligned lettering, and unusual metal flow patterns. These errors weren't supposed to exist, yet they escaped into circulation. Most were spent without a second thought. A few survived. Those few are now commanding huge prices because collectors understand that errors tell a story. They prove that even the most controlled systems can fail, and that failure creates rarity. When these rare 1960 pennies appear at auction, excitement spreads fast. Phone bidders jump in. Online bidders push prices higher. Floor bidders hesitate for a moment, then raise their paddle again. Why? Because they know once the hammer falls, that coin might not appear again for years. This is exactly why we're paying big money at auctions for rare error pennies, because the supply is drying up while demand keeps rising. Another fascinating part of the 1960 penny story is its copper composition. These coins were made before the shift to zinc cores, meaning they contain a higher copper content. That alone adds collector appeal, but when combined with rarity and condition, it creates a perfect storm. Investors don't just see a coin. They see a historical asset with long-term potential. What makes this even more exciting is that many of these valuable pennies are still undiscovered. They're sitting in jars, drawers, old collections, and forgotten boxes. Someone, somewhere, unknowingly owns a coin that auction houses would fight over. And every time a rare 1960 penny surfaces, it reminds collectors why they keep searching and why we keep buying aggressively at auction. We've personally watched prices climb as collectors realize how scarce the best examples really are. A coin that sold for a few thousand years ago can now spark bidding that goes far beyond expectations. Auction records aren't broken overnight, but they are pushed higher step by step, and the 1960 penny is part of that trend. So here's the moment everyone waits for, the question that makes people rewind videos and check their pockets. How much can a rare 1960 1-cent penny really be worth? Not the common ones, not the worn ones, but the right one. The rare date variation, the strong mint error, the near-perfect condition coin that collectors are desperate to own. At high-end auctions, where serious money moves quietly but decisively, the rarest 1960 1-cent pennies have reached astonishing levels. We're talking about prices that don't sound real for a penny. Coins that look simple, small, and ordinary, yet sell for between $80,000 and $90,000 when the right bidders are in the room. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, nearly 6 figures. And the reason is simple: rarity, demand, history, and the fierce competition of auctions where we and other collectors are paying big money to secure these rare error coins before someone else does. So before you ignore that old penny, before you toss it aside or spend it without thinking, take a closer look. Because somewhere out there, a 1960 1-cent penny is waiting to shock its owner. And maybe, just maybe, it's already in your hands. And here's where the story gets even more interesting. Because once collectors realize a coin can reach this level of value, the psychology completely changes. A penny is no longer seen as spare change. It becomes a target. It becomes something people actively hunt for. And when that happens, auctions turn intense. Quiet rooms suddenly feel electric. Every bidder knows they're not just buying copper. They're buying a disappearing opportunity. What most people don't realize is that auction houses don't see hundreds of these rare 1960 pennies every year. They might see one truly exceptional example after a long gap. Sometimes years pass before another comparable coin appears. And when that happens, word spreads fast among serious collectors. Private messages are sent. Phone calls are made. People prepare funds ahead of time. Because when that coin hits the auction block, hesitation means losing. We've watched it happen. The opening bid starts reasonable. Someone raises their paddle. Another bidder responds instantly. Online bidders join in. The price climbs steadily, then suddenly jumps. That's the moment everyone in the room realizes this is not a normal sale. This is one of those coins that doesn't come back. And that's exactly why we are buying these rare error coins at auction, paying big money, because waiting is riskier than acting. The 1960 penny, especially with rare characteristics, sits in a unique position. It's old enough to be historic, but modern enough that people underestimate it. That's dangerous in the coin world. Underestimated coins are the ones that surprise everyone. Collectors who understand this don't wait for confirmation for price guides. They move early, quietly, and decisively. Another factor driving these auction prices higher is certification. When a 1960 penny is professionally graded and authenticated, it removes doubt. The coin becomes official. Its condition is locked in. Its rarity is confirmed. And once it's sealed, collectors treat it like a verified asset. At that point, bidding isn't emotional, it's strategic. People calculate how high they're willing to go, knowing full well that once this coin is sold, the next opportunity could be years away. And let's talk about competition, because competition is what pushes a penny into the five-figure range. One bidder alone doesn't create a record price. Two determined bidders do, especially when both know the same thing. That rare error pennies from 1960 are drying up, and demand is growing faster than supply. That's when prices stop making sense to outsiders and start making perfect sense to insiders.